Hi everybody, welcome to Vanessa Mariano's page. Me and Kay here today, so very happy to be here, and we're going to be continuing on the talk about energy field. So today it's going to be all about leaning into femininity and leaning into the masculine field, and also we're going to be talking about spirituality. So Kay's here; she's very kind and very knowledgeable, so she'll be sharing with us her knowledge and her perspective, and also she's going to be bringing forward Marianne Williamson's take on feminism and spirituality and what is going on with the misguidance. About that.
Yeah.
So thank you, Kay, for being here. So just briefly, Vanessa Mariano, for the people that haven't been following this page for a little while, and these people that certainly know me. So Vanessa Mariano here, and I used to work with women only, but my main focus has always been about feminism, about feminine energy. And it was only, I've noticed that I had a lot of men reach out to me within the last maybe year or so, and I kind of stopped and had to reevaluate, ask myself, what is it that is, why are men coming my way, and what is it that's attracting them? And I realized that, obviously we see it all around us. There's so many wounded men that seem to be, that seem to have a lot of confusion, especially within relationships when finding partners, what roles they, would you say, Kay, what roles they have?
Where do they go from here?
Where do they go?
Like the Me Too is really confusing for some women and a lot of men as well. And so I thought I'd look at these different perspectives of feminism and how that applies to healing and to the work that we're doing. So since the 60s, we've had women break free. They've stepped into male roles, equality, all this has been built up, but it's still not going right. It's still not basically happening for women, where women are feeling good, or where men are feeling good. So I'm just going to look at this today very briefly. So in stepping into the energy fields, so that we're looking at us, that men are part of the energy male spectrum, and women are showing us the female spectrum of these energy fields. So we're only aspects of the whole picture of what we actually are spiritually.
You're saying, Kay, that the feminine spirit is actually present within men and within women as well. So we both hold a component.
Yes. So what's happened? Yeah. So what's happened? The women experience their masculine earth energy. So they've stepped into that role, and that's what women have been doing. So.
Say that again, sorry, Kay.
So women have stepped into the masculine role, the aspect
We're just
of themselves.
I'm just going to, yes, they have, and I'll just read them out. So the field of the masculine, earthly masculine, is very active, very logical, very competitive, very independent, closed, and hierarchical.
Yes.
And we can see that. We can see in the way that women operate in the workforce and within corporates and also entrepreneurs, and that's why everybody gets burnt out. I've been there, you've been there. Yeah. So we're very much leaning in the masculine. I just wanted to give that foundation.
Yes. Yeah. And so we've been told to lean in and to look over men's shoulders at the boardroom. But what I want to say today is that, so it's not to divide women, but just to show the very many aspects of how feminism is moving and where we are and how to go forward, in my view. So we've had Me Too, where women have stood up. I've stood up and told of my own experience in that.
What is the Me Too movement?
The Me Too movement is for women and men who've suffered sexual abuse to stand up and say it's not okay, this is my story, and essentially to say to men that this is not okay, there's a behaviour that's not okay. And in essence, it's not okay to take part of a woman. If you had a car, if you had a Ford car, for instance, but you wanted a Ferrari, and someone started giving you the bits of the Ferrari and said, hey, this is what a Ferrari is. Well, you say, hey, no, that's not a Ferrari. I want the real thing. So we're talking about this for women. So we just can't have parts of women where women are contributing on some level, but men are saying, well, hey, no, we don't want the whole of you. You're not going to drive around in a Ford with Ferrari parts, is the point I'm making here, right? So you want the whole Ferrari, don't you? So, right, we're saying, well, we're giving all of womanhood. We're saying, look, we want to give you all of womanhood, so you just can't take parts of us, but we can't just lean into the male energy field. We're asking men to step into the female field.
So I just want to interrupt you there, sorry, Kate, just to get some clarity here, also for the viewers.
Yeah.
So when you say we want you to step right in, we don't want you to take parts of us. So is that related to, because we had a conversation about this, about how women are objectified by men, and I saw it in ways that people have reached out, men have reached out to me with my work as well, thinking that, you know, the service entailed something completely different. So what came up from our conversation was that men, in order to activate or to stand or to activate the feminine field, it's not really activating, but for them to connect with that feminine field, they feel that they need to reach out and take something that belongs to that is part of women. So that's why they're objectifying women, right? And so it's actually men thinking that in order to fulfill their feminine side that is missing within them, they need to use a woman's body, they need to use a woman's kindness, generosity, nurturing nature. And that's why they become codependent.
Yes. So yes, we both do. Both of us, male and female, are dependent on each other. If we haven't activated those energies within us. So, and here, if you watched last week, the last talk we had, I explained about how, in energy field terms, men are simply shut down from these fields. They're trained, every fibre of their being is trained not to step into the feminine energy, or they will be a girl. I just saw a post the other day, a guy wanting to kill himself, and but scared to just really be soft and gentle with himself. So this is the whole thing that men must get over, that they are not just
the fear of being rejected,
exactly.
the fear of being called homos, or being. I was having a conversation yesterday with a friend of mine, and he's been on the spiritual path for the last few years, and he was brought up a Christian. I'm going to bring him in and have an interview. We can have a talk with him. And he shared with me, and I obviously asked for permission, but he grew up in a Christian family, and his mother and father were his best role models. But when he was growing up, he went through puberty. And during his teenagehood, you go to high school and you mix with your peers, he felt very misplaced, and he felt very cut off from that feminine side of himself that was nurtured. And when he was growing up in his Christian family, and his mother was very loving, very nurturing, very present. So a way for him to fit in and to not feel rejected or to not feel different, he said that he was part of some gang, and by him turning into this gang, it was a way for him to connect with his masculinity. Or emasculating himself. Is that how you would say that, Kay?
Well, I think emasculating themselves is being told what to do with women. From that,
So I guess what I'm trying to say is that he wanted to feel more like a man. So he cut out every part of like feminine, softness, gentleness that he had.
Well, that's where you come to this nurturing feminine side, where men cut off their passive aspects, where they've got to be active, they've got to be the doer, they can't just be the receiver. And that is what makes it really tough when you're trying to communicate with somebody who cannot open that field. So this is the realization about men stepping into that field and activating those energies just in themselves. They don't need to actually do them. They don't have to be a girl, they don't have to wear a dress. It's not about feminization. It's about nurturing and intuitiveness and passiveness, and that it's okay to be passive. It's okay to let someone else hold the reins for a while, and which reminds me of a couple. I had a wonderful couple at one stage, and they were having terrible problems with their relationship where they couldn't stay together. They both travelled a lot. They couldn't stay together because they were just in conflict all the time. But when I worked on her energy fields, what I found was they're both riding these horses and up a narrow track, and both of them fighting to be in front. Okay, so I said, you know, you got to have
the competition.
Yeah, they were in competition, but I said actually you need your own areas where you are leading in that area, and that other person is leading in their area. You know, it might be the husband when he's home looking after the children, that he's caring for the children and caring for the home.
You're both going forward with your own strength.
Yeah, so, you know, so when the wife comes home from work, she's not saying, this is how you do it, you run your house like this. She's running her own, or he's running his own house. So whoever is running the house is running the house. And the person is in a supportive role with that. That's if they're a homemaker, you know, in a traditional sense. You know, if they're both working, obviously they've both got to help. We've gone through this before.
Yeah, how many don't though?
Yeah, so
because
they're
stuck in that.
This is where men need to step up as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very much. It's simply around a lot more awareness of what this is, and this is what we're leaning in. You know, I'm looking at this. We're leaning in is not where we're at right now.
Okay, I just want to mention the components of the earthly feminine energies.
Yes.
So it's nurturing, feminine, intuitive, passive, interdependent, transparent, and inclusive.
Yes. Now, I did this talk one day, and a chap said to me how his wife is only in that field. She's only in that field. She doesn't try to do this. She doesn't try to do that.
She's only in the feminine.
Only in the earth female. All she wants to do is stay home, cook, clean, and look after the children, which didn't suit him. Their marriage broke up. But the whole point is that this is the field that has been totally neglected. So in the day of feminism, where women are out working, it is about valuing this field as well. That, like leaning in, like being in business, or whatever doing, that they are of equal value for women. So the really important thing to do right now is to value these fields, which they're not valued. So what this means, this covers the environment, covers women, it covers Indigenous people and tribal knowledge. So it's bringing all of this into this one field. So it's not a one-dimensional thing.
How do you see? Sorry, Kay. How do you see us starting a conversation with men about a topic that is very delicate? Because we were talking about this last week, but it triggers people.
It does trigger people.
It triggers people
Yes.
when you bring up about, you know, who's going to stay home and do the cooking and the cleaning, and if the husband's working, they feel in the right to be able to come home and to just relax and not have to do. So how do you see these conversations starting from a place where I can share my perspective as well? How do you see?
That to me comes again around valuing this, because many people, the men and women included, see this as a devalued role. But in actual fact, you know, if we took away services like the rubbishman, let's just take two, rubbishmen and carers, you know, the world would fall over in 3 days if the rubbish wasn't taken away. You'd have disease, you'd have all sorts of stuff, which society simply cannot run with, you know, if they're not activated.
Of course.
If we're not caring for the children, if you're not taking away the rubbish, if your office isn't cleaned at night,
yes,
you know, the whole system falls over. So these are basic necessities that are absolutely necessary for every system, that the system is running properly. So
it really comes to taking radical responsibility. That's what it sounds like.
It does. So this is equally, the cleaning lady is as important in a company, or the cleaning man is as important in a company as the executive, because it's not running, and this is where business is the same thing. the workers are equally valued.
They're not treated the same in the
No,
workforce,
so-
but they are.
So Japan had a system where the work, you know, if the company wasn't running for the betterment of the worker, then the company was a failure. So we need to get back to those values where our workers are part of our success story. So when it's working for them, it's working for everyone, and we've got a financial system that is working for everybody. And
so it's really about having this understanding. I feel that this is why when you have awareness, it's great that we're bringing these topics and we're having these open conversations, because when we do come across, and I've worked in the corporate world. Have you worked in the corporate?
Well, I've been
as well, haven't you? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you talking to me about it now. But you know, when we have this awareness, we can then more readily be prepared to act when we need to. When something has been put against us, we know how to stand. And it's not about fighting, it's not about necessarily having conflict, but it's simply a matter of having the awareness, standing, you know, having your feet firm on the ground, and just...
Exactly. And this is where I actually have a lot of respect for anger, because when you've got a group of people who are angry, there's something going wrong. So whether it's groups of young men who are isolated, no jobs, there's a problem in society. It's just not that youth and young men are the problem.
The worst is when they become complacent. When you become complacent is when you become a follower, and when you just become accepting of everything that is happening around you, and you feel that you know, people are dominant, people that are on top of you, they have the right to tell you who to be, how to act, but in reality, that's your dignity and that's your self-respect as well.
Yeah, and at stages, people go in stages of when they're being passive and they need to sit back, and then there's time to step forward.
Of course.
And so that's what the Me Too movement has done. It's saying, hey, there's a problem going on here. And for, you know, I say to CEOs, if you're not going to mentor somebody, then you're not stepping into the space. You're not pulling your weight. You're not stepping into that earth female energy field and accessing huge information, huge knowledge that belongs to that field. So we're looking at the intelligence of the lower left field, of the female earth energy field. So this is of women, of the female energy, and Indigenous people, which lifts us to beyond these earth energies. So it's very, very important knowledge. And the people, men or women, who are not listening to the Me Too movement, they're simply denying that part of them, of themselves and of the whole society. And so again, it's like, instead of taking the parts of the Ferrari, it's stepping into the whole Ferrari and going for the ride that whole Ferrari is going to take you into. So this is like stepping into unknown territory. So it's pretty actually scary for a lot of men to step in there, because this is something that they've been told their whole lives, that they're not male, they're not masculine if they do step into that field. So there's a huge block for men, and men need to sit back and look and say, I'm not a girl because I do that. I'm becoming a whole human being if you do that. So this is, I really want to stress this.
That's beautifully said, Kay.
And this is when where I come to Marianne Williamson in this. So this is the different aspects of the female story that's going on right now. So you have the lean in movement, it's leaning into the male energy. You have the Me Too movement saying, hey, wake up, guys. We're not accepting that you just take parts of us and you're not taking the whole of us. And so they're saying, look, we this is not okay. So men need to come to the party with that. And then you've got Marianne Williamson, who just did a marvellous interview with Mind Valley, which I will put the link in below for you to access that. But she explains this. So I've talked about Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg just swooping up that whole energy, and she explains this perfectly in the Mind Valley interview. I suggest when you watch that, if you watch that, to take the energy field diagram with you from the Peace Through Compassion Aotearoa Vision page. You can download those and print them off and work through so that you see how this is working. Work through with Marianne Williamson on this video what she's talking about. So you'll see where she's going and which field she's in. Which, of course, she knows nothing about energy fields, but I can work out what she's saying.
She's very aligned with what you're talking about.
So what she's bringing is about how our spirituality and our feminine energy. She's not saying it in those words, but we need to bring the spiritual there too. So what she's saying is she's quite literally saying we're not going to get there through this field, which I've been saying forever. And we need to activate this field. So this is what she's talking about. And you'll see that this drives us to greater spirituality and a greater connection to otherworldly things. So more open.
Thank you,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. That was very well explained. And I like how you brought in, Marianne Williamson as well. Is there a quote that you can share with us that you have on the top of your mind?
Well, I mean, I just love her quote. I can't remember.
Is it the long one that you have in your book? It's like a whole paragraph.
Yeah.
But she's incredible. I love, she talks a lot about how the universe is also self-correcting and self-organizing.
Yes, she's also saying, I think she mentions it in that video too, like she has a huge spiritual following, but they're not connecting to her political life. They're not saying, oh, we're spiritual and we're going to connect to your spiritual.
She says that politics is around us all the time.
Of course it is. We live in it. Politics affects us every time, or every day, every moment. But she's saying all the spiritual people are not connecting with her politics, and that they're too spiritual, kind of thing. So she's telling spiritual people to wake up as well. It's a very interesting.
Because spirituality is. We didn't mention about the misguidance of spirituality. We haven't.
Well, she explains it beautifully, actually.
Yeah, because we wanted to talk a little bit about that, didn't we? About the misguidance of spirituality.
Yes.
How long have you been on the spiritual path?
Well, many years since. Years.
It's like, where do I?
Feels like forever. I got one fatigue, so I couldn't tell.
Oh no! Just 1 second. Sorry, the battery. Yeah, on.
Yeah, so we couldn't heal through the medical profession, so I went and visited shamans and gurus. Spent forever, seems that I've spent forever doing this. And then
there's just so much out there though. Yeah. That sorry, just kind of adjusting.
Yes.
There's so much misinformation.
Yes, so we're not one or the other, and what the energy fields do show is that we are all part of the whole. So it's bringing that whole.
So when you are too spiritual, you're not very grounded into your earthly.
Well, many people have disassociated from taking part in politics, but it's really important that they step up right now, because that they help hold the space. So this is what I'm saying, and I'm not criticizing. I'm not criticizing people. I'm just hoping to bring some awareness and that we are all open to all fields, because that is part of us. So as we open to those, we open to the consciousness, we raise the consciousness of those fields, which raises the consciousness of humanity. So bringing that all together is about raising consciousness, raising awareness. And through that, in actual fact, when you come through here, you do the full circle around here. So that's when you get you get involvement. We come through with the spiritual male energy. So if you watched the last video, comes through in a totally different sense, with a high awareness. So you have a whole humanity. When this all starts happening and starts to connect, you have a whole humanity that does things a lot different.
Simple ways that we can start to activate these fields, and listening. Tell me if you agree. Listening is a really big part of it. Being a good listener, not just hearing people, but actually connecting to what they are saying. And what happens is, and I've been through this, don't know whether you've been through this as well, Kay, but what really interferes with good communication is when people are overwhelmed with emotions because they're not discussed, they're not heard, the person is not accepting of what they are going through. So what interferes with communication is actually a lot of anxiety.
Absolutely.
Anxiety, fear, anxiety, and that stops the person itself from connecting or to listening to what the other person is saying. So we become more and more segregated and isolated from one another, thinking that we need to get away from people, but it's really a matter of taking care of our primary needs, taking care of ourselves, and this is where my work comes in, or the way that I connect with my people, is really putting yourself first, not in a selfish, negative way, but in a essential way. Because it's the same concept of when you're on an airplane and they say, you know, first put the mask on yourself and then you rescue the child. So if you are not
opening your own energy,
absolutely,
and then as you're doing that, you're actually opening, allowing, you're holding a space for other people to open their energy, and it's a very healing thing, and which you show in your work very beautifully.
Thank you, Kay. Yeah, it's really important that we start to take very just radical responsibility every morning, and the way that we are realigning our thoughts and our nervous system in the morning. What do you do when you wake up first thing? You know, do you pick up your phone? And there's no criticism here, it's just about bringing awareness about how are you taking radical responsibility about how you are managing or activating this life force that is within us. So what I can support you do is to activate that energy through breath, through movement, and using language as well consciously in order to work with your subconscious mind. Because I see this all the time. When you're mixing with people, you will respond based on your subconscious reaction.